Lisa Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and today I want to talk about codependency and shame and how important it is for those of us who are going through codependent recovery, how important it is for us to avoid the shame spirals and to avoid people who can become agents of shame. So what do I mean by that? So I recently created a post for Instagram and Facebook, and it was about children and becoming codependent because there was a lack of love in their childhoods, or a lack of attunement, and there was no need to feel embarrassed or to be ashamed because you feel that you suffer from codependency today. And I was really surprised at the responses that I got and the direct messages that I got from people who were saying, I'm not allowed to use the word codependent in recovery. I'm not allowed to use the word in my therapy group. I'm not allowed to use the word codependency in my Facebook group. I told my boyfriend that I thought I was codependent. He made fun of me. And so there were some various different messages along those lines where people who discovered that they were suffering from codependency were being shamed. And I just thought how sad that was, that somebody who is suffering with codependency, who is suffering with tremendous shame already, and who is suffering with a lack of self-love. Ross Rosenberg highly believes that codependency should be named self-love deficit disorder, and I get that. So codependency is rooted in shame, tremendous shame, and tremendous lack of love for the self. And to think that codependents who are saying, I think I might be codependent, to think that they're awakening and that they're being shamed, to me just breaks my heart. It's like, what? We're going to shame people because they come from homes that they felt not attuned with the people in their life with, that they felt separate from the people in their lives, they felt invisible. Remember, when children are born, they love unconditionally. And so when their parents or their caretakers, or they're in situations like they're in foster care and they're being bounced around, or they're adopted out and they can't find where they fit in the world, or you're born to parents who treat you with indifference, or you're born to a family system that's narcissistic and there's like this mob mentality and you're the scapegoat, and there's triangulation, there's gaslighting, or there's alcoholism, and there's unpredictability. Oh my God. Here the innocent being that you're supposed to be attuned to, and your needs are supposed to be being met naturally. There's not supposed to be a struggle to have a child's needs met. If a child doesn't feel seen by 2 or 3, there's going to be some trouble there, right? And that's not a child's fault. So when it comes to being codependent, when you grow up in a home like that, that's unpredictable, when you grow up in a home where no matter what you do, you can't figure out how to make the people in your life happy, there's some trouble, right? If you are in a home where you feel like there's indifference, there's gaslighting, there's unpredictability, there's screaming, there's yelling, there's hitting, or there's just nothing. Nobody talks to one another. It feels like there's the air is made of fiberglass, and everybody's walking around on eggshells, but no one's saying anything. Denial is huge when it comes to dysfunctional families. If you come from a home where, everything feels so tense, but nobody's talking about what's really going on. Come from a home where mom and dad are at each other's throats, and, maybe there's alcoholism, maybe there's drug addiction, whatever. And you come from that home and you're this tiny little creature and you need to feel safe in order to feel like you can venture out and explore the world and experiment with the world and make mistakes and learn how to master your environment. You can't do that, when you come from an unpredictable home. You have to retreat into yourself, right? And the most important thing to you is connection to the people who raised you. And so what you try to do is you try to figure out what your mom needs or what your dad needs. In some cases, the best thing that you could do is hide. Like if dads are drunk and dad's violent, or mom's drinking and she's violent, or they're going to start fighting, the best thing that you could do is hide in a closet or hide under a bed. You know, what's happening? Your needs aren't being met. You're just trying to survive. So now, as you develop, what coping skills do you have? You run away. That's not your fault. If you learned that if you smiled on cue, that was big in our house. My mother taught us to smile when my father walked in the door, even if we were literally at each other's throats. I mean, if we were fighting, we heard my father's car door slam outside the house, we, like soldiers, stood up. Hi, Daddy, big smiles on her face. She was grooming us to worry about what he needed. And that, lasted a lifetime. And I think my sister, I think, is still struggling with that. As a matter of fact, I know she is. I'm not. I'm over that. But for years, I was brainwashed to think that I was supposed to keep my father happy, that was my job. And that's why I think that whenever I struggled in my first marriage, I didn't go to my dad. I didn't tell him because I knew that was going to displease him. I was brainwashed to make my father think everything was happy. And so when you think about children who fawn, who are now people pleasers, when you think about children who are other focused, who are codependent, who grow up feeling like detached from the self. I don't have a self. I don't know what my identity is. I'm struggling to figure out who I am. I know if I take care of you, I can feel connected to you, and that feels better than not feeling connected to you, which is that's what codependency is. We're codependent on this other person. And because we fear abandonment so much, and we fear being lonely and alone so much, we can stay in toxic relationships. We settle for crumbs very often. We look for people who are sick. We look for people who need someone to take care of them. We are very highly attracted to people with narcissistic traits because we are other-focused and the narcissist is self-focused. So we're used to being invisible inside family dynamics. And so living with a narcissist, we're invisible. It just fits, right? Not our fault. And so, it like I said, it really breaks my heart to think that anybody is being shamed for being codependent, that anybody's being shamed for feeling needy, right? If you're feeling needy, that's because you never got your needs met. That's nothing to be ashamed of, right? And the behavior is a consequence of never feeling connected to. And, I just wanted to do a short video and encourage anybody who is struggling with codependency to recognize that codependency is really rooted in some sad experiences. Now, that doesn't mean that we as adults, once we recognize that we have these codependency traits, that maybe we enmesh way too easily with people. Maybe we are, and we tend to be attracted to powerful people who are very confident. And I think that's because, maybe we saw our parents as strong and confident. At least that was our perception. And if we get this person's approval, then we're good enough, right? We've got to be careful of this stuff. When we begin, and sometimes the people in powerful positions, let's say you're a business, let's say you work for somebody and your boss is like, just so self-confident, he's like rocks the house and, he's just so confident. And you tend to be like codependent, and you see this person and it reminds you a lot, maybe you don't recognize it, but may remind you of your mom and your dad, or a combination of both, or a brother, or somebody who, you felt rejected by. So below the veil of consciousness, you might feel very, very attracted to this personality and might not realize that you, on some level, think you need this person's validation. In this situation, let's say it's a work situation. In this situation, you might be the employee that's up this boss's butt. You might be the employee that, names your kid after the boss. You might be the employee that goes above and beyond compared to anybody else in the office because you want this boss's validation. And the boss may or may not have high narcissistic traits, but let's say the boss just is turned off by you and, makes fun of you and ridicules you, because you're too much. Dude, you're just too much, right? So you might feel shame when this person rejects you because you're trying so hard, you're fawning so hard. If you have that, if that's been your experience, right? In those moments when you're having this awareness shift, this paradigm shift, you got to be very, very careful about feeling ashamed of yourself, because shame means there's something wrong with you. You feel like there's something innately wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're an extension of Creator, just like everybody else is, right? Nobody is more valuable than you, even though you might think that they are. Nobody is more valuable than you. Nobody is more important than you. We're all the same, right? This idea, this value that somebody is more important than us, more value, that's all an illusion, right? That's all from the ego. No, you're important and you're worthy and you're enough. So, but let's say you have that type of an experience, and a friend maybe shunned you, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or somebody was just like, it's just too needy, right? It's important that you recognize that in that situation, maybe you are coming off needy, but it's important that you have the ability to observe that and understand that's coming from a place of pain. And that's because your needs, in most likely, were not attuned to when you were a child, that you did not feel seen enough. You did not have enough positive mirroring in your childhood where you were able to develop a healthy sense of self. And so your codependency, your dependency or your codependency on someone outside of you is rooted in something that's very, very sad, and that's not your fault. And if you can see that, right, and you can love that part of you, you can love the inner child that has felt so pushed away, and the only way that this inner child could gain any connection to anybody was through fawning, through people pleasing, through becoming an extension of someone else, right? That's very sad. And what we need to do, if that's our experience, is we need to speak to the inner child and let them know that they don't have to fawn, and they don't have to beg, and they don't have to plead, and that they're enough, that those days don't have to continue. And then it's up to us to stay in a higher, which is difficult, but it is possible, to stay in a higher state of awareness and to reprogram ourselves through consistently showing up for the inner child. And if we can do that, we can create great, great results in our lives, and we can heal the codependency in us. And so I just want to say, I'm sorry if anybody has ever shamed you, or you have ever felt ashamed for being You're not weak if you have codependency. You're not weak. As a matter of fact, you've been carrying a lot of stuff inside of you, and you've been taking care of everybody else, right? So that's not a sign of weakness. It's very difficult to be somebody who has stuffed their emotions and who wakes up every day and then cares about everybody else but themselves. It's very difficult to be, it's very challenging to be the person who says, enough. I am willing to begin to take care of myself and let other people go, even though I'm going to be facing all of my fears, right? Because when you stop people pleasing, when you stop fawning, you're saying these crumbs are no longer enough for me. But then what happens, and that's why I say, if you're healing from codependency, you are a warrior, because you are letting go of everything that you know. You're letting go of all of the familiar. And it takes warrior-like strength to let go of the familiar and to believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel. If you're codependent, you have developed defense. It's like a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism, right? I don't want to feel alone. So even though my friend's mean to me, I'm still going to be nice to her. I'm still going to buy her an awesome birthday gift. I'm still going to go clean up her house. I'm still going to, drive her everywhere because she likes to drink. Even though, she's mean to me, I'm still going to take care of her, right? And when you stop doing that, you're letting that relationship go. Recovering from codependency, you may recognize that, at work, you may be fawning over people who aren't nice to you. And when you tolerate it because you're afraid of not being in the loop, right? Because you're afraid of being alone. There's this toxic loneliness. There's this shame. Oh my God, if I'm not taking care of these people in my life and I don't have all of these people to take care of, I don't have the life skills to take care of myself. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, what am I going to do? What we do is we learn to take care of the self. So all of this energy that we put into Mary and Sue and Mark and Tom and this one and that one, all of this energy, all this mind stuff that we put towards someone else, we reserve it for the self. We reprogram the mind. We reprogram the mind. We give all of this energy back to the self. We buy ourself flowers. We take baths once in a while instead of quick showers. We buy our own food. We pay our own bills. We go to bed when we want to go to bed, right? We're not everybody else's Uber driver that wants to drink, right? We're not out till 3 o'clock in the morning making sure that everybody else gets home. We are taking care of ourselves. We are paying attention to our house, right? We are getting our house, our head in order. We're not attracting sick people anymore. We're not allowing people to take advantage of us. Narcissistic people love to take advantage of codependent people. They'll bitch and moan that we're needy, but they'll take our money and they'll take our time and they'll take our bed and they'll take our lawn. They'll do whatever they have to, right? So when we're recovering from codependency, we're becoming more responsible for how we're showing up in our own lives, and we're taking care of the self. Avoid people who are agents of shame. Avoid people who exploit that part of you that might be needy and might be alone. Avoid people who exploit that part of you that is terrified to be alone. Do what you can to become accountable for how you're showing up. That doesn't mean you're responsible for the codependency in you. If you're codependent, it's very, very likely that you came from a home that was neglectful. And yes, psychological, emotional, spiritual neglect is abusive. Children are supposed to feel loved and connected to. Their emotions are supposed to be tended to. Children's emotions are not supposed to be ignored. Children are not supposed to be verbally abused. No one is ever supposed to put their hand or lay a finger on an innocent child. Children are not supposed to be sexually abused. They are not supposed to be mocked. They are not supposed to be scapegoated and triangulated. It's ridiculous what happens in the average home that goes ignored. And if you experienced any of that, it is not your fault if you've grown up detached from the self, you don't have any love for the self, and you have shame. It's not your fault. Being not loved has caused you to feel shame because all children assume it's their fault that they don't have love. It's because children don't know about the world. They only know about the little world that they have. And so it's all they care about. It's what's happening in this kitchen. What's happening in this kitchen? Oh, mommy and daddy are yelling. They told me to get the F out of here. It's my fault. It's my fault. That's what children think. They're very, very subjective. And these subjective ideas become belief systems. They become ingrained. And so it is not your fault if you're carrying shame. And one of the exercises that I talk about in Codependent Now What? And if you want exercises, if you want practical tools, please check out Codependent Now What? That's like a workbook, and there are tons of like exercises that you can use to help you release the shame, right? The sweater of shame, and you can release it and you can let it go. It's not your fault if you're codependent. And the good news is that you can heal. And if you can live a much better, healthier life. And then once this changes, right? Once the landscape of the brain changes and all of these links that stink, all these codependent thoughts like, oh, I can't be alone. Oh, I'll never make it by myself. Oh, I need this person, or whatever thought is in your head that's making it okay to tolerate being around people who abuse you. Once that gets corrected and the mindscape changes, then the matrix will change. That is my promise to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being committed to love and light. Know that you are enough. Know that you are as valuable as any star in the sky, any droplet of water in the ocean, any tree, any bird, any human being. I don't care who we're talking about, Queen Elizabeth, Beyonce, I don't care who we're talking about. Nobody is more valuable than you. You matter. Namaste, dear ones, as I bow to the love and the light that is absolutely in you. Shine on. You got this. Bye for now.